Hey guys, tonight we wake up somewhere we definitely don't belong. You open your eyes and everything smells off. Not bad, exactly. Just ancient. The kind of scent that sticks to stone walls and damp soil, heavy with thyme and fire smoke. You're lying on something that feels like straw. Your back aches. Your mouth tastes like dust and wine, and your ears pick up a mix of clanging metal and Latin? Yup. You're in ancient Rome, and surprise, the air already wants you dead. Before you start lying down, don't forget to like and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm telling you here. Oh yeah, try to write in the comments where you're from and what time it is. I really love seeing where my viewers come from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up groggily. First mistake. The bed, or what passed for one, is nothing more than straw on wood. Bugs scurry off your leg as you flinch. There's something crawling near your foot, but you can't tell if it's a beetle or a loose piece of your sanity. Either way, the world is loud already. You hear shouting outside. Men barking in Latin, carts clunking over uneven stone, a baby wailing like it knows what's coming. You try to stand. Your legs feel wrong, like the gravity's slightly heavier here. The air is foul. There's a mix of smoke, sewage, body odor, and something that smells disturbingly like spoiled meat. Welcome to Rome, where Febreze doesn't exist and sanitation is a myth. You stumble outside into what you think is a side street. A vicus. Narrow, sun-blasted, and loud. Noisy kids dart past you barefoot. One bumps your leg and gives you a look like who let the ghost out. Your clothes, way too clean. Your shoes, definitely foreign. Your stare, suspiciously alert for someone supposed to be a Roman. They're already clocking you as an outsider. Fun fact, the average Roman citizen never bathed alone. That's right. Public baths were like gyms, spas, and Twitter threads rolled into one, and just as full of drama. Which brings us to your next brilliant idea. Find water. You're sweating like crazy, and dehydration hits fast in the Mediterranean sun. You wander in search of a fountain. Good news, Rome is covered in aqueducts. Bad news, that fresh water might have passed through 20 other mouths or feet before reaching yours. You find a basin. It smells a little like old fish. You hesitate, but it's drink or drop. You drink. You shouldn't have drunk that. Historians still argue whether ancient Roman water was that bad, or whether it was the lead pipes that really messed people up. Either way, if you were hoping to last more than a day here, your gut bacteria just filed a resignation letter. Some say Roman immune systems were bulletproof. They had to be. You, on the other hand, are about to experience the medieval version of food poisoning. From water. Still, you press on, weaving through alleyways so narrow you can feel brick brush both shoulders. A rat darts across your path, a huge one. It pauses, looks at you, blinks. You swear it smiles. Then it scampers off into the dark like it has somewhere very important and disgusting to be. You're starting to itch. That's not just in your head. Lice were common, and fleas loved foreign blood. Your modern skin is a buffet. One bite turns into 5. And you know how you can't not scratch when something's itchy? Congratulations. You've just introduced bacteria into your bloodstream. You're doing great. Now you're sweating, nauseous, and scratching like a dog in July. And guess what? You haven't even met anyone important yet. You're the equivalent of a lost tourist who speaks zero Latin, wearing suspicious clothing, looking confused near a military camp. Sketchy? Oh yeah, here's a quirky fact. Ancient Romans believed certain foreigners were omens, especially if you acted oddly or wandered near temples. People once stoned a guy for sneezing the wrong way near a shrine. You just walked past 3 of them mumbling something that sounds kind of like Starbucks. Good luck. But now your stomach growls. You haven't eaten, and the bread smells surprisingly decent from that vendor's stall. It's flat, hard, and probably laced with traces of ash from the oven. But beggars, especially time travelers, can't be choosers. You grab a piece when the vendor's distracted, not your brightest moment. The guy turns, shouts. Someone else joins in. Suddenly, it's not bread you're holding. It's a legal offense. Romans weren't too keen on theft, even petty ones. Some punishments involved public beatings, or worse, branding. You run, which makes you look even more guilty. Your sandals, assuming you even had them, aren't built for this. You skid around a corner and slam into a man in uniform. Bronze chest plate, plumed helmet. Oh good, a legionnaire. And by the look he gives you, you just interrupted his lunch break. He scowls, says something sharp. You nod like you understand. You don't. He points somewhere. You point somewhere else. He grabs your wrist. Now, here's where things could go a few ways. If he's bored, maybe he lets you go with a kick and a threat. If he's in a bad mood, well, let's just say the Romans invented crucifixion. Overkill? Definitely. But they weren't known for subtlety. Some say Rome's harsh justice system kept the city functioning. Others argue it was just a tool for control. Either way, you're realizing something very quickly. This isn't your world. It was never meant for you. And unless you figure out a way to blend in or escape, you're probably not going to see the next sunrise. And that's just the morning. What happens next will shock you. The idea seemed simple. Just find some water, clean yourself up, wash off whatever, that was, on your leg. But in Rome, even something as basic as bathing can become a one-way ticket to a very itchy death. You follow the scent of steam and incense. It smells kind of nice, actually. Warm, herbal, like someone boiled a pine forest. And when you step through the open archway, you see it. The baths. Huge and echoey, with mosaics underfoot and people lounging around in nothing but smug attitudes and towels. You've stumbled into a Roman therme, part gym, part spa, part hangout zone, part social trap. The steam curls around your face, and for a second, you almost think you're safe, until someone bumps into you. You say, "Sorry," in English, and the man gives you a strange look. Not angry, just amused, like he spotted a bug wearing shoes. He walks off, muttering something to his friend. You're not sure, but it didn't sound like, "Welcome, time traveler." Anyway, you strip off your disgusting outer layer, though honestly, that might have protected you more than you realized, and step toward the warm pool. You notice your skin tingling already, not from the heat, but from whatever's floating in this communal soup. And, oh boy, it's a party in here. Lice, fleas, skin cells, maybe the occasional parasite that missed leg day. See, Roman bathhouses were marvels of engineering, but also kind of like the world's most elegant petri dish. A fun little trivia. While the Romans did clean themselves with a tool called a strigil, basically a metal scraper used to drag sweat, oil, and dirt off the skin. It wasn't sterilized, and that oil they used before scraping, shared. Communal jars. So, when you rubbed it on yourself, you were essentially seasoning your body with the juices of strangers. Yummy. You try not to make a face as you wade into the water. Warm. A little too warm. Some parts of your skin sting. You tell yourself it's fine, it's just because your immune system is adjusting. But deep down, you know better. This isn't detox. This is microbial roulette. A man across the bath laughs a little too loudly. You glance his way. He's got a knife tucked into the folds of his robe. That's not ideal. Here's the thing. Baths weren't just for hygiene. They were places where gossip flowed faster than the water. Politics, money, enemies, all discussed here. You're the weird one with the accent, the tan lines, and the confusion. You're not blending in. You're standing out. And the wrong kind of attention in a bathhouse. Not great. Some say disputes were settled in these steam rooms with more than just words, whispers, dagger glints, accidental drownings that weren't so accidental. It's even said some politicians met their end in bathhouses, not because of old age, but because of betrayal. So, yeah, you're not just soaking in bacteria, you're soaking in tension. You hear someone call out. 2 men point at you. You pretend not to notice and slide out of the water, trying to act casual. Your skin itches. That's probably just the parasites setting up base camp. No big deal. You dry off with a cloth that smells like mildew. It's damp. Of course it is. You want to run it through a hot washer with 3 cups of bleach. But this is Rome. There's no bleach. There's no soap. There's only vinegar. Yes, Romans sometimes used vinegar as a cleaning agent, and if that makes your nose crinkle, just wait till you remember that vinegar was also poured over sponges used for other things. But we'll save that horror for later. Right now, you're just trying not to offend anyone. You walk toward the exit, shivering a little, not from cold, but from knowing something might be crawling between your shoulder blades. And here's where the really fun part kicks in. The caldarium, the hot room, is right next to the hypocaust, the underfloor heating system. Brilliant innovation for its time. But also a fire hazard, literally. The hot air is generated by a furnace burning below the floor, and occasionally things caught fire, like buildings or people. So, yeah, you're walking over tiles that could, on a bad day, become a barbecue pit. You step too close to one corner of the bath. The tile is hotter. You almost yelp. Your foot pulls back just in time, but it makes a slapping sound that turns heads. A few bathers look over. One raises an eyebrow, another squints. You don't wait to see what they say. You grab your filthy tunic, which is, ironically, probably safer than whatever was in that water, and bolt outside into the humid Roman air again. You feel dirty in a whole new way. Congratulations. You've survived the Roman bath experience. Kind of. You might have a minor parasite, or 3. But hey, at least you didn't get stabbed. Still, there's an itch behind your knee that wasn't there before. You'll try not to think about it. Now you're standing in the open street again, cleanish, but somehow more anxious, because this city doesn't sleep, and now that you've wandered out of the bathhouse, you need to eat. And let's just say, breakfast in Rome? That might be its own kind of nightmare. What comes next could send your stomach screaming. You've made it through the Roman bathhouse, barely, and your skin feels like it's vibrating from whatever microscopic creatures decided to throw a party on your body. You're itchy, overwhelmed, and hungry. Time to eat, right? Here's where things start to go wrong. You walk past carts of grapes, figs, and cheese wheels stacked like Roman Legos. Everything looks kind of delicious until you get closer. That cheese, it's buzzing. Not metaphorically, there are actual insects swarming it. The figs, overripe and oozing. Grapes, some are half-fermented and not in the fun wine way. They've started a new life cycle. Still, your stomach growls loud enough to scare a nearby dog. You're desperate. You follow the scent of baked bread and warm oil through a side alley and into a tiny, smoky taberna. Think of it as the Roman version of a food stall. Wooden counters, no refrigeration, and an overwhelming scent of fish sauce, and not the good kind. It hits you like a chariot. That smell, sharp, sour, faintly sweet in the way that only rotting things can be. Welcome to garum, Rome's favorite condiment. It's made by fermenting fish guts in the sun, for weeks, sometimes months. No joke. People used this stuff like ketchup, poured it on everything from meat to fruit. Fruit. You order something that vaguely resembles a flatbread. The guy behind the counter, missing 2 fingers and grinning like he knows something you don't, slaps it on a scorched dish, scoops some grayish paste onto it, and sprinkles something that might be herbs, or dried bugs. You try not to breathe through your nose. The first bite? Not awful. The second? Your tongue starts asking questions your brain doesn't want to answer. You taste mold, maybe anchovy, maybe both. It's like someone bottled low tide and aged it in a boot. But hey, historical fact, garum was so popular that it became a massive industry. People traded barrels of this stuff across the empire. Some say the best garum came from Spain, aged in ceramic jars and prized like fine wine. Others swear by the black market stuff, illegally brewed in back alleys, even more pungent and probably more lethal. Historians still argue whether garum was genuinely beloved or just tolerated because it masked the taste of spoiled food. And here's a bonus trivia bomb for you. There was even a luxury version called garum sociorum. It cost a fortune and smelled exactly the same. Rich people really are something else. You try to wash it all down with a sip of wine. But, plot twist, Roman wine wasn't like the wine you're used to. It was thick, syrupy, and often diluted with water. And not filtered water, river water, rainwater, sometimes water that had bin places. Some folks added spices or even chalk to adjust the flavor. Others just went full chaos mode and mixed it with vinegar. Think drinking salad dressing after licking a coin. Now your stomach is starting to protest. It turns out your modern digestive system isn't built for a diet of fermented fish, suspicious grains, and wild mushroom mystery meat. Roman cooking didn't use refrigeration, preservatives, or the idea of best before dates. Everything was a gamble, a roll of the bacterial dice. You try to keep it together. Breathe. Focus. Don't vomit in public. But your gut has other plans, and it's not just the food, it's how they eat. Romans didn't use forks. They ate with their fingers, shared dishes, shared cups. No one's worried about double dipping. Germ theory won't be invented for another 1,800 years. Even the elite weren't safe. There are stories, possibly exaggerated, of emperors keeling over during a feast. Poison was a real threat at dinner parties. Some hosts hired food tasters. Others just gambled. If your meal didn't kill you, maybe someone at the table would. You start sweating. Not from the heat, but from the internal war going on inside you. Every organ is panicking. Your stomach's trying to break down century-old food bacteria like it's a Marvel supervillain. Spoiler, it's losing. You stumble out of the taberna and into the daylight again. One hand on your belly, the other wiping your mouth. You need a bathroom. Desperately. But in ancient Rome, that's not as easy as it sounds. And what you're about to find? Well, let's just say it'll make you wish you'd never eaten anything in the first place. Your digestive journey is about to take a terrifying turn. Your stomach is making noises that probably shouldn't be legal. Each step you take feels like a countdown. You need a bathroom, and fast. So, you ask around. Well, gesture wildly. You're still not fluent in Latin, and honestly, your frantic mime routine is drawing a crowd. Someone finally points you down a side street and grunts something that sounds like Forica. You follow the smell before you even see the place. Roman public toilets, called latrini, aren't tucked away in private stalls. Nope, they're community affairs. Imagine a long stone bench, full of holes, lining a wall like medieval Swiss cheese. No dividers, no privacy. Just you, your new bathroom buddies, and a pit underneath collecting the contents. Oh, and the smell? Imagine an open sewer that's been sunbathing for days, with a hint of dead rat and despair. Still, what choice do you have? You gingerly lower yourself onto the cold stone seat, praying to every Roman god you can name. And then, you feel it. A faint wiggle. Something brushes the underside of the bench. You're not alone. You shoot up like a spring trap. Your heart's racing, and suddenly that explosive urgency you had a second ago is gone. Fear has overridden digestion, Fight or flight beats bodily functions. That little wriggle? Not your imagination. Roman latrines were open to the elements. That meant rats, insects, and other things you don't want near your backside. Some people even told stories, possibly exaggerated, but still, of snakes or eels coming up through the plumbing. Because yes, the plumbing was a thing. Romans had sewer systems, but they weren't closed or filtered, just stone channels that flowed under the city, carrying waste away. Sort of. Sometimes, unless it rained and backed up. And here's the real kicker. You look to your side and spot a communal stick. That's the tessorium, a sponge on a stick, used for wiping, washed, if you're lucky, in vinegar water and left in a shared trough. Everyone used it, over and over. Yeah, I'll give you a moment. Historians still debate whether people actually reused the same sponge or brought their own. But even the bring your own theory doesn't make it much better, because these sticks often sat out in the open next to flies, mold, and whatever else decided to set up shop. You think wet wipes are a modern miracle? They're practically divine compared to this. You back away from the bench like it's about to explode, which, to be fair, it might. Methane buildup in ancient sewers was real. Fires and sudden flashes, also real. There are stories of toilets spontaneously combusting. Imagine explaining that to your insurance provider. Trivia break. Emperor Heliogabalus supposedly had a toilet made of solid gold. Luxury? Sure. Hygienic? Definitely not. But it's a reminder. No matter how rich you were in Rome, you couldn't escape the experience. Even elite homes had latrines that opened straight into the sewer with zero smell protection. Some people burned incense nearby. Others just accepted the stink as part of life. So, what do? You end up behind a cart, in an alley, trying to go as fast as possible while also keeping an eye out for rats, guards, or judgmental cats. Congratulations, you've hit a new low. And just when you think things can't get worse, a man in a red-dyed tunic stares at you from across the alley, tilts his head, and shouts something about insulting the gods. Oh, right. Public urination, especially in the wrong area, could be considered disrespectful. You might have just peed on a sacred wall, or a senator's house. You bolt, still not clean, still not finished, and definitely still in danger. Some Romans believed certain toilets were cursed. Spirits called lemures were thought to linger in dark places, including sewers. Whispered tales warned about hands reaching up from the underworld to grab unsuspecting users. Total myth, probably, but in this moment, you're not taking any chances. Your dignity is gone. Your body's a mess. And your brain? Overstimulated and underinformed. You need a break. A breather. Too bad the streets are even worse. What's waiting out there might make you miss the rat-infested toilet. You take a step out of the alley, hoping for some relief. But Rome has other plans. You don't notice it at first. Your brain's still recovering from the sponge incident. But soon it hits you. There's no sidewalk. Not in the way you're used to. You're just on the road. Sharing space with carts, chariots, donkeys, aggressive vendors, and the occasional stray child running wild with a stick and zero fear of death. The ground is uneven, made of ancient stones that look like they've been chewed on by time. There's a constant wetness underfoot, and it's not rain, it's runoff. From what exactly? Use your imagination. Actually, don't, because Roman streets doubled as sewage canals. See those narrow gutters running down the center? That's where everything drained. Bathwater, trash, leftover stew, urine, blood sometimes. You step in it. It splashes. You wince. Now try crossing. There are no crosswalks, no pedestrian lights, no gentle chirping noises telling you when it's safe to move. There's just you and the stampede. Chariots whip by at terrifying speeds, wheels screeching against stone. Drivers shout in Latin, clearly furious. You don't speak the language, but tone is universal. They're basically saying, move or die, and they're not stopping. You try to dart across during a brief break, but that's when you hear the clatter. Another chariot, closer this time. You freeze. It swerves. You narrowly avoid becoming ancient roadkill. Welcome to Roman traffic. Fast, furious, and fatal. Now, here's a fun or horrifying fact. Ancient Rome had about 1 million residents at its peak. That's a lot of people crammed into a city without modern infrastructure. The streets were narrow and clogged. Rich folks used litters or carriages. The poor walked, or were walked over. At night, the chaos didn't stop. It just got darker. Without streetlights, the roads turned into pitch-black mazes. Torches were rare and expensive. You'd stumble your way home, hoping no one ran you down, or stabbed you for your sandals. Oh, and let's talk about the stepping stones. Some Roman streets had raised stones at intervals so pedestrians could cross without stepping directly into sewage. Thoughtful, right? Sure, if you're wearing a toga and not carrying anything. But if you're in a panic, trying to escape a suspicious-looking merchant yelling about cursed scrolls, which, let's be honest, could happen at any moment here. Those stepping stones are death traps. One misstep, and you're down, face first into whatever soup the street is serving. Also, chariots weren't just for gladiators and parades. They were used for transport, status, and sometimes straight-up intimidation. Get in the way of a wealthy Roman's ride. Best case scenario, you're verbally assaulted. Worst case, you're a speed bump. And because you look different, modern clothes, modern posture, the way you flinch at every chicken that crosses your path, you stand out. Some people are staring, others are sneering. One old man mutters something and crosses himself. A child throws a fig at your head. You're starting to realize something. Just walking around here is dangerous. You're not built for this world. Another strange detail? Romans didn't always have their streets labeled. No handy signs saying via this or forum that. If you get lost, which you definitely are, you're out of luck. Landmarks help, but most of them just look like more crumbling stone. Every corner feels like déjà vu. Trivia time. Emperor Augustus once issued a decree to limit daytime cart traffic because the congestion and noise were unbearable. So, most transport shifted to nighttime, when visibility was terrible and accidents more frequent. In other words, someone actually said, let's just do all the deadly stuff in the dark. Genius. You cling to the side of a building, trying to stay out of the way, but even that's risky. Some Romans dumped their chamber pots from upper windows, unannounced. One poor soul in history, whose name we'll never know, was reportedly killed by a falling urn full of waste. Yes, death by airborne poop. You glance up instinctively. Nothing falls. Yet. You consider ducking into a nearby doorway, but it's guarded. Private property. The man there eyes you with suspicion and places a hand on his dagger. Just a warning. You back away slowly, arms raised like you're surrendering to gravity itself. And suddenly, you miss the sponge. At least that wasn't trying to run you over. There's a reason even native Romans didn't linger in the streets without purpose. It was loud, filthy, dangerous, and unpredictable. Want to walk a block? You needed grit, luck, and maybe a personal bodyguard. You have none of those. Some say the average Roman walked over 10 miles a day, but they also had Roman legs. Yours are jelly. Your shoes? Totally inappropriate. You're slipping, literally and metaphorically. Historians still argue whether Rome's streets were marvels of ancient engineering or just glorified obstacle courses for the perpetually unlucky. Looking around now, you're leaning toward the second option. So you retreat into a corner, breath shallow, heart pounding, eyes darting for anything familiar. But there's nothing, only chaos. And the knowledge that the next time you need to move again, You'll probably have to risk your life doing it. But that's just the beginning. You thought it couldn't get worse after dodging a runaway chariot and slipping in something you sincerely hope was just spilled wine. But the minute you step into the open square, sweaty, confused, clearly foreign, it hits you. Everyone is staring. Not in the polite, oh how interesting kind of way. More like, what the hell is that thing kind of way. And you suddenly remember something obvious. You do not look like a Roman. Your clothes are weird. Your shoes are all wrong. You're probably carrying yourself like someone who knows what an iPhone is. And, worst of all, your face? Totally unfamiliar. You don't look like a slave, a senator, or even a merchant. You're just a freak. A walking, blinking, awkward anomaly. And the Romans? Not the most subtle people. A group of boys lounging near a marble fountain point openly. One mimics your walk, exaggerated like you're some kind of circus act. A woman selling bread clutches her child and pulls her close as you pass. Someone mutters a word that sounds a lot like demonium. You try to keep your head down, blend in, but it's pointless. Because it's not just how you look, it's how you smell. You're not used to this world, and this world isn't used to you. Romans bathed in oils, doused themselves in heavy perfumes made from crushed flowers, herbs, even vinegar. You smell like stress, fear, and failed time travel. People sniff the air when you pass. A man sneezes loudly and glares at you like it's your fault. A dog growls. And then, insult to injury, someone spits at your feet. You pick up the pace, fast, and then you do the one thing you absolutely should not have done. You speak. Just a little. Maybe to yourself, maybe to try asking directions, but it's in modern English, not Latin, not even Italian. It sounds harsh, foreign, alien, like a spell, or worse, a curse. The closest group around you freezes. You just became very interesting. A bearded man steps forward, eyes squinting like he's sizing you up for a cage or a steak. A foreigner, he asks another. A spy? The other shrugs. Or maybe a barbarian sorcerer. That last part definitely wasn't a compliment. Here's where it gets worse. Rome was not a place known for tolerance. Sure, it was a melting pot. People from all over the empire came through. But that didn't mean folks were nice. Romans had deeply ingrained social rules, beliefs, and prejudices. Deviate from them, and you'd get labeled fast. Stranger, heretic, enemy, possessed, cursed. Now, about that little fun fact. There's documented history of Romans accusing foreigners of witchcraft simply because they behaved oddly. One poor traveler was jailed for dreaming out loud. You can't make that up. And you're sweating, twitchy, and whispering to yourself in a language no one here understands. Yeah, you're not winning any popularity contests. You back away, but the crowd's grown. Vendors are poking their heads out of stalls. A soldier leans on his spear a little too casually. You lock eyes with an older woman who whispers something to her neighbor, eyes wide. Suddenly, everyone seems to have something to say about you, and none of it sounds like, "Welcome to the neighborhood." And here's the kicker. Rumor spreads in Rome faster than fire in a grain warehouse. One whispered accusation, one misinterpreted gesture, and you could be hauled in front of a magistrate before you could say, "I swear I'm just visiting." If you're lucky, they just exile you. If you're unlucky, well, Romans had very creative ideas about justice. You duck into a side street. Someone throws a stone. Not big enough to hurt, but definitely big enough to send a message. You don't belong. You are not welcome. And in this world, being unwelcome is dangerous. The irony? Romans believed heavily in omens and signs. A weird stranger showing up out of nowhere on a day when 3 pigeons flew the wrong way? That's a bad omen. Some might think you're a cursed soul sent to ruin the crops. Others might think you're a god in disguise. And while that sounds cool, it's not. Romans tested gods. sometimes with knives. Some say Roman citizens were surprisingly hospitable, but only once they'd figured out exactly what box to put you in. Merchant, soldier, slave, friend, foe, you. You don't fit any box. You're an open question, and open questions make Romans very uncomfortable. Historians still debate just how xenophobic the average Roman really was. Some point to letters and texts showing a mix of curiosity and disdain. Others argue that the very structure of the empire relied on control through cultural dominance, not mutual understanding. Translation: if you weren't Roman enough, you were a problem. You find another alley to catch your breath. It smells like fermented fish and regret. You press against the wall, trying to make yourself small. Your heartbeat sounds like war drums. You don't want to draw attention, but the very act of hiding only makes you look more suspicious. So, you wait. Minutes feel like hours. The buzz of voices fades, but the paranoia sticks. You've become aware of your body in ways you never have before. Every movement feels exaggerated. Every cough sounds like a threat. Even blinking too fast feels dangerous. You're trapped in a city that was never designed to accommodate someone like you, culturally, linguistically, biologically. You're too loud, too quiet, too weird, too unfamiliar. Every corner feels like a mirror reflecting back all the things that mark you as other. And the worst part? They haven't even done anything to you yet. You're still breathing, still technically free. But freedom in ancient Rome was fickle. It could vanish with a glance, a whisper, a lie. And there are plenty of whispers now. So you hold your breath and wait. Wait until you hear what comes after this. You're desperate to disappear, to blend in, to just exist without someone throwing another suspicious glance your way. So, what do? You do what any outsider pretending not to panic would do. You walk straight into the beating heart of ancient Rome. The Forum. Bold move. From afar, it looks like a market, a town square, a place to wander and maybe find someone who doesn't want you dead. But once you're in it, oh no. This isn't your local shopping plaza. This is power, sculpted in marble and draped in togas. There are statues everywhere, all with very serious faces. Men in crisp white togas stride across the paving stones like they own every grain of dust. And maybe they do. Merchants bark prices, philosophers argue with the sky, and guards pace with that unmistakable, I get paid to stab energy. You think, maybe if I keep my head down and walk with purpose, no one will notice me. Wrong. People notice. Because the Forum isn't where people blend in. It's where people present themselves. Senators deliver speeches here. Priests hold public rites. Deals worth fortunes are whispered behind pillars. It's where reputations are made, or utterly destroyed. And you? You look like you wandered in from another dimension. A vendor tries to get your attention. He's selling amphorae, clay jugs, probably full of wine or olive oil or something equally pungent. You panic, smile too wide, mumble something in English that sounds like static to his ears. His eyes narrow. He says something back, sharp and fast, then spits on the ground. Great. Now you've offended the olive oil guy. You move faster, heading toward a crowd gathered around a speaker. Some man with too much hair and not enough shirt is yelling about tax reform. The crowd is into it, cheering, booing, nodding like they totally understand. You nod too, hoping to pass as just another mildly irritated taxpayer. Then a man beside you looks down at your clothes. His face goes slack with disbelief. You're wearing, well, modern stuff. It's dirty by now, sure, but it's not hand-stitched wool. Your shoes alone scream, not from around here. And your watch? It may as well be a magical amulet. The man leans to his friend and mutters something. You catch the word maleficus. Which? Cool. Very cool. You take a step back. Two soldiers notice. They tilt their heads. And now you're one misunderstood twitch away from becoming today's main event. It gets worse. Rome was paranoid about outsiders stirring unrest, especially in the Forum. This place wasn't just the town square, it was the nucleus of politics, religion, and social order. Foreigners acting strangely could easily be accused of spying, or worse, spreading bad omens. One false move, and you're dragged before a magistrate with no time to explain that, technically, you're just lost and Google Maps doesn't exist yet. Here's your weird trivia of the day. There were cases of foreigners being punished for disturbing the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods. What did that mean? Basically, if your vibe offended the divine, the whole city could suffer. Earthquakes, fires, famine, and all because you showed up with your cursed hoodie and questionable Latin. And guess what? A priest is walking your way now. You freeze. He's draped in ceremonial robes, holding something that looks like a fancy spoon. He gives you that you're not on the guest list stare, and you can practically hear your ancestors whispering, "Run." But you can't run. Not here. Running would make you look guilty. So you just stand there, sweating, smiling like an idiot, pretending to be interested in some random wall inscription that probably says, "Don't pee here." Someone grabs your arm. Your blood turns cold. It's not a soldier, thank the gods, just a merchant. But he's angry. He shouts at you, points to a stand of jewelry behind him, and accuses you of stealing. You didn't even touch the stuff. But remember, you already look weird. You already sound strange. And now you're caught loitering near silver and gold in the center of Roman commerce. You try to explain. Big mistake. Your modern words tumble out like curses, and now everyone around you is turning. Eyes, whispers, fingers pointing. A kid screams and runs. A woman gasps and says something about the mark. Now the guards are definitely coming. Let's pause and appreciate this. You are being mistaken for a thief, a possible witch, and maybe even a barbarian spy, all at once. That's a record. It's been said that Roman justice was swift and not particularly into innocent until proven guilty. In fact, for non-citizens, it was often guilty until someone more important says otherwise. And you're a total nobody here. Historians argue whether average Roman citizens were this quick to jump to accusations. Some suggest people were more tolerant than we assume. But others point out that mass hysteria wasn't exactly rare, especially when religion and politics collided. And right now, you're standing at that very intersection. Your only option? Vanishing. You duck between two marble columns and bolt down an alley. Behind you, voices rise. There's shouting, maybe even the sound of leather sandals slapping against stone. You run like you've never run before. Past a bakery, past a line of slaves hauling amphorae, past a statue of some dead emperor giving you the side-eye. You don't stop until the Forum is a memory, and your lungs feel like they've been sandpapered. You collapse behind a crumbling wall, somewhere quieter, darker, with less public execution energy. And that's when you realize surviving here isn't just about avoiding sickness or dodging chariots. It's about never being noticed, because in ancient Rome, attention could get you killed. But that's just the beginning. You wake up the next morning, if it's even morning. The sun's doing that thing where it just exists somewhere above you without a clue what time it is. You feel awful, like you've been trampled by an ox cart, then dragged through a spice market. Your throat's dry, your stomach churns, and everything aches in a way that's probably not from running for your life yesterday. You're sick, and in modern life, that might mean a quick call to urgent care, a little pill, some soup, and a nap. But you're not in modern life. You're in ancient Rome, And getting sick here is basically an audition for your own funeral. Still, you're desperate. Maybe it's just dehydration, or some weird ancient mold you inhaled, or the fact that you haven't had a clean sip of water since you got here. Either way, you need help. So, against every survival instinct, you ask someone where the local doctor is. They point toward a dusty back alley, not the most reassuring start. Here's your first fun fact. Roman doctors were a mixed bag. Some were trained, sure, usually Greeks, often slaves, sometimes both. But just as often, they were total frauds with a collection of sharp tools and a vague understanding of the human body. Basically, if someone called themselves a medicus, it could mean they knew how to treat a fever, or that they once saw someone perform surgery and thought, yeah, I could do that. You push open a door that smells like vinegar and goat. Inside, it's dim. Flies buzz lazily near a basin of what looks like old blood. There's a table, wooden, uneven, stained. A row of instruments sit on a shelf. Forceps, knives, hooks, something that looks like a corkscrew but meaner. The doctor appears. He's got a beard that probably has its own bacteria, and a look in his eye that says, "You're not leaving the same way you came in." He doesn't ask for your medical history. He doesn't wear gloves. He doesn't even seem surprised that you're covered in filth and barely conscious. You try to tell him what's wrong. He pokes your stomach, looks in your mouth, sniffs your breath. Then he nods, reaches for the knife. You try to back away, but you're already too weak. He mutters something about balancing the humors. Oh, right. Roman medicine was based on the idea that your body was controlled by 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If you were sick, it meant one of them was winning the race. So, the obvious solution? Let some of it out. Bloodletting. Yes, that old classic. He pulls out a curved blade and gestures for your arm. You try to protest. He shrugs, slices your skin, and drains a little blood into a dirty bowl like he's basting a roast. It hurts. Badly. And there's no numbing agent. No anesthesia. No clean bandage waiting. Just a rag, soaked in something that smells like old wine and burnt rosemary. The pain makes your vision swim. Now, here's the trivia bomb. Some Roman doctors used opium or mandrake root as mild sedatives. But unless you're rich or lucky, you're getting 0 of that. What you get instead is whatever the doctor has on hand. And right now, it's wine, duct tape, well, twine, and hope. He starts mumbling a prayer. That might be more effective than the wine. Then he lights a small lamp, dips a metal rod in the flame, and starts heating it. You realize with horror what's next. Cauterization. No antiseptic? No problem. Just burn the wound shut. The smell of sizzling flesh fills the room. And it's yours. You scream because of course you do. And he tells you to be still, like you're just being dramatic. There's a moment, right in the middle of the agony, where you start to think maybe dying yesterday in the forum would have been better. When it's over, he pats your shoulder, gives you a clump of herbs wrapped in cloth, and charges you. Well, you don't even have Roman money. So he waves you out, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like, "May the gods decide your fate." Out in the street, you stumble like a sleepwalker. You're bleeding, sweating, and now you smell like roasted meat. And here's the kicker. You might not even get better. Roman medicine had no germ theory. No idea about bacteria or viruses. A sneeze could be a demon. A fever could be bad air. Your odds? Not good. Some say ancient Roman doctors did occasionally get things right. They had surgical tools, wrote detailed case notes, and even performed early cataract surgeries using a needle to push the cloudy lens out of the eye. Yeah, poke it, outside. But no one agrees how widespread that knowledge really was. Some historians think the average Roman had access to decent enough care, if they could pay. Others believe most people relied on folk remedies, prayers, or just crossed their fingers and waited. Either way, you're not feeling confident. You find a quiet corner near a statue and slump down. A cat wanders past. Eyes you like, you're already halfway gone. And honestly, you might be. Everything's blurry. Your wound burns. Your head swims. You whisper to yourself, just a nap, just a quick nap. But this is Rome, and if you sleep too long, someone might just decide you're a body in need of looting. What happened next will shock you. You hear the roar before you see the arena. It's a sound that rumbles low and steady, like thunder rolling just beneath the earth, except it's made entirely of human lungs. Shouts, chants, stomps, and screams, all mixing into one giant wave of noise that seems to shake the very walls of the city. And you, being the curious, time-traveling soul you are, follow the sound, because obviously, that seems like a safe decision. You turn a corner, push past a group of toga-clad men loudly arguing about something that might be politics or lunch, and suddenly there it is, the amphitheater. Massive, stone, bleached by the sun, and stained by centuries of sweat, blood, and popcorn dreams that never existed. You're pretty sure this is what your history teacher meant by colossal, though they probably didn't imagine you'd see it like this, alive, pulsing with energy, and somehow already terrifying. Someone nudges you from behind. "Go in," they grunt. "It's almost time." Time for what? You climb the steps. No tickets, no ushers, no seat numbers. Just organized chaos as people pour into the rows, shouting, laughing, jostling for the best view. You find a spot near the edge of a stone bench that's been worn smooth by generations of butts. The sun beats down. The air smells like grilled meat, unwashed humans, and anticipation. And then, drums. The floor of the arena below you stirs. A gate creaks open. Out walks a man wearing almost nothing but armor and confidence. A gladiator. The crowd explodes. He lifts a weapon, a trident of all things, and scans the stands like he's picking out who's already rooting for him and who he might dedicate a kill to. Because that's what this is. Not a wrestling match, not a sport. This is a fight to the death. And here's where your stomach does a backflip. See, in your world, sports are entertainment. Maybe violent, maybe intense, but nobody's supposed to die. In ancient Rome, though, blood is part of the spectacle. The audience expects it. They want it. And if there's not enough of it, they'll riot, complain, or worse. Start looking around for someone else to provide the thrill. Someone. Like you. Trivia break, because your brain needs a distraction. Some Roman emperors hosted these games to gain favor with the masses. Bread and circuses, right? Keep the people fed and entertained, and they won't ask too many questions about how the empire's actually doing. The games could go on for days, with animals, executions, mock battles, and one-on-one duels. Some gladiators were slaves, others volunteers seeking fame. But they all knew the same truth. Step into the sand, and your life belongs to the crowd. Back to you. The match begins. Trident guy faces off against a man with a net and a dagger, because Roman logic says, yeah, let's make fishing into Mortal Kombat. They circle each other. The crowd chanting names, bets flying. You realize quickly that this isn't just violence. It's choreographed chaos. Skill, endurance, showmanship. One wrong move, and it's over. The net fighter lunges. Trident man blocks. Sand flies. Blood sprays. You flinch. Hard. Someone behind you laughs. First time? You nod, too stunned to speak. They eye your clothes, your haircut, your wide-eyed horror. You're not from around here, they mutter. Uh-oh. The fight below ends with a scream. One man raises his hands to the crowd, waiting. The emperor, or maybe a sponsor, stands and gives the sign. Thumb sideways? Down? Historians still argue what it actually meant. But the message is clear. Mercy or no mercy. No mercy today. The crowd cheers as the defeated fighter is dragged away like trash. And then, someone points at you. Look at that one, a voice calls out. He didn't cheer. He looks suspicious. Oh, Great. A few heads turn. More eyes follow. The man next to you suddenly shifts away like you've got the plague. A guard notices the commotion. He starts walking toward your section. Your heart drops to your stomach. In the Roman world, being different is dangerous. There are no backstage passes, no observer badges, just blood, sand, and the assumption that if you're not a part of the audience, you might be part of the entertainment. The guard reaches your row. Name, he barks. You stammer something incomprehensible. He narrows his eyes. You don't talk like us. You shake your head. Bad move. New slave, he guesses. Another shake. Worse move. The guard signals to another. Now there are two of them. You try to stand, but a hand grabs your shoulder and forces you back down. And that's when they ask the question that flips your world inside out. You ever held a sword before? You freeze. They're not escorting you out. They're volunteering you in. Because here's the thing. Sometimes when the crowd is bored, they throw in someone new. A thief, a disgraced soldier, a nobody, or, in this case, you. And here comes the rumor twist. Some stories suggest that once in a while, the arena hosted accidental gladiators, foreigners or prisoners tossed in just to see how long they'd last. Some say it was entertainment. Others think it was punishment. No one really agrees, but all versions end with the same general outcome. Not well, you're shoved to your feet. A small wooden gate creaks open down below. You realize they expect you to go in. You try to explain. This is all a mistake. You're not from here. You don't even go here. But it's no use. The crowd is chanting again, louder now, hungry. You descend the steps like a man walking into his own eulogy. Someone hands you a wooden sword, laughs. Try not to die too fast. The gate closes behind you, and for the second time in 24 hours, you're standing under an open sky in the middle of ancient Rome, surrounded by people who'd very much like to watch you bleed. Somehow, this is even worse than the doctor. Wait until you hear what comes after this. You're not even hungry, but refusing would be suspicious. That's how you end up reclining. Yes, reclining. On a cushion at a low table in a Roman dining room, the kind with ornate frescoes on the wall and creepy-eyed statues peeking from the corners. You're surrounded by people who speak too fast and laugh too loudly. They raise goblets filled with something that smells like vinegar mixed with regret, and they keep offering you food, which you really, really don't want to eat. You've barely recovered from your last close encounter with Roman cuisine, and now you're at an elite dinner party where the appetizers might kill you, on purpose. Let's start with the setup. Roman banquets were the social event. You didn't just feed guests, you impressed them. Exotic dishes, imported spices, wine diluted just enough to say, we're classy, but still strong enough to loosen tongues. And tongues, in this place, are dangerous. You quickly realize this isn't just a meal, it's a performance. Every course is a statement, every compliment is a trap, every toast might be your last. Trivia time, because you need a mental snack you can actually digest. Romans sometimes served things like flamingo tongue, stuffed dormice, or fermented fish guts. That last one, garum. Imagine soy sauce and anchovies had a love child, then left it in the sun for a month. That's garum, and it's everywhere. But back to you. You're doing your best to blend in, mimicking how others scoop up stew with bits of flatbread. A man next to you starts bragging about how he totally saw Cicero once. Another tries to one-up him with a story about a senator who choked on an eel. Everyone laughs. You fake a chuckle and reach for your cup. Bad idea. Across the room, someone freezes mid-sip, watching you. You recognize the look. It's not, who is this guy? It's, what does this guy know? Paranoia is baked into every layer of Roman society. Political ambition, family alliances, backroom deals. It's like Game of Thrones, but with worse plumbing. One rumor, one accusation, and boom. Your name's on someone's wax tablet, and not in a good way. You glance around. Half the guests aren't eating. Some are watching others eat first. A servant whispers into a patrician's ear. That patrician raises one eyebrow, then gently pushes his plate aside. Oh no, you suddenly remember a fact you wish you didn't. Poison was an actual party trick in ancient Rome. Not always deadly. Sometimes just enough to cause a little vomiting, a bit of twitching, a small lesson in humility. But sometimes, yes, definitely deadly. Why? Because it was effective. Because power is fragile. And because what better way to test loyalty than seeing who survives dessert? A legend floats through your panicking mind. Empress Livia, yes, Augustus's wife, was rumored to be a master poisoner. Some say she helped along multiple deaths in her political circle. Others think that's just ancient gossip. But here's the thing. Nobody really denies it. You try to figure out which food is safe. The grapes, too easy to tamper with. The cheese, smells like betrayal. The wine has been sitting there, exposed, like an invitation to a grave. Next to you, a younger man coughs hard, wipes his mouth, and suddenly excuses himself. Everyone pretends not to notice. You pretend harder. Just as you're debating whether accidentally spilling your entire plate into a potted plant would get you stabbed, someone calls your name. Wait, your real name? Heads turn. You're caught. Across the table, a woman in golden jewelry raises her goblet. You've been quiet all evening. Tell us, what's your opinion on loyalty? Oh no, this is a test. And not a pop quiz. This is life or death. Gladiator in a tunic level stuff. One wrong answer, and you'll be tomorrow's cautionary tale. You give a vague response. Something about loyalty being a virtue, a sign of character. You throw in a comment about how admirable the host is. Smile. Try not to sweat into your wine. She stares at you. Long, unblinking, then smiles. You're not sure if you passed or just bought yourself a few extra minutes of breathing. Then comes the final course. Honey cakes. They're golden, sticky, warm from the hearth. And you've never been more suspicious of a pastry in your life. You pick one up, bite the edge, pause, nothing, no tingling, no dizziness, just sweet. You let your guard down for 2 seconds, and that's when it happens. The host stands. He lifts his cup. To unity, he says. To peace. Everyone echoes the toast, but there's tension. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting to erupt. You see it then. A servant slips something into the wine jug as he refills a nobleman's cup. No one says a word. No one can. Because here's another Roman truth. Sometimes poison wasn't just used against enemies. Sometimes it was used by them. Preemptively. You look at your cup, untouched. You look at theirs, not so lucky. The nobleman drinks. You sit very, very still. 30 seconds pass, 60. Then he jerks upright. His cup drops, his eyes go wide. And everyone else? They just keep eating. You're watching a murder in real time, and it's normal? Someone nearby whispers, "He knew too much." Someone else mutters, "He talked to the wrong client." And the woman in gold? She looks at you, smiles again, like she's wondering how long you'll last. Some say these events weren't rare, that poisonings at feasts were as much a part of politics as speeches and statues. Others argue they're exaggerated, made bigger in retellings. But honestly, sitting there with honey on your fingers and fear in your throat, you don't care about the academic debate. You just want out. As soon as it's polite, you stand, mumble thanks, and back away, never turning your back entirely. Because in Rome, you never know who's watching, who's listening, or what they've slipped into your cup. And you're starting to think starvation might be the safer option. But of course, your night isn't over yet. The moment dusk settles, the city shifts. You thought Rome was loud during the day. The shouting vendors, the hammering of metal in the forges, the creaking of carts. Those were comforting sounds compared to what creeps in once the last oil lamp flickers out. Night doesn't fall in ancient Rome. It crawls. You step cautiously out of the villa, heart still pounding from your close encounter with honeyed homicide. The feast is behind you, but you're not safe. Far from it. Now you're in a place where the shadows breathe, and they are hungry. Rome had no streetlights, no buzzing neon signs to guide the lost. After sunset, the city turned into a blind labyrinth. The moon, if it showed its face at all, only illuminated just enough to make everything more terrifying. Stone walls loom taller. Every corner whispers threats. And the silence, it's not really silence. It's just a collection of sounds you can't quite place. You tread carefully, trying to remember which alley leads back to the Forum, or maybe toward the river. Honestly, it's all a blur. The cobblestones are slick, probably from sewage or spilled wine or something much, much worse. You glance up at a shuttered window and swear someone just pulled the curtain aside. Let's get this straight. Romans didn't do night shifts unless they were desperate, because night in this city belonged to a very specific crowd. The desperate, the lawless, the ones who couldn't afford a better option. Slaves on errands, runaways, thieves, killers, and worst of all, the bored rich, slumming it for a thrill. You hear footsteps, not behind you, ahead, then a laugh, low, raspy, great. Here's a fun fact to make this worse. Rome had a whole network of night watchmen called vigiles. In theory, they were meant to patrol the streets, stop crime, and put out fires. In practice, they were underpaid, undermanned, and often part of the problem. Some say the vigiles were more like a gang with a badge. Others say they did their best in an impossible city. Whatever the truth, you'd rather not meet them, because even if they don't stab you, they might still arrest you for existing suspiciously. And right now, you are the definition of suspicious. Suddenly, a door creaks open nearby. You freeze. A woman steps out, wrapped in a thin cloak, basket in hand. You think maybe she's safe, but then she locks eyes with you, hisses something under her breath, and vanishes back into the shadows. Maybe you startled her. Maybe she recognized you from the feast. Or maybe she's just a ghost. Honestly, any of those options feel plausible. You pick up the pace. Your sandals slap softly against the stones, echoing like drum beats in a crypt. You duck into an alley to avoid a group of drunken men shouting about honor and a missing chicken. You don't want to know. Then, another figure. This one's fast, silent. You barely catch the outline. Narrow shoulders, hooded cloak, something metallic glinting in their hand. They slip into the shadows across the street like water, like smoke. And suddenly you remember. Mugging wasn't just a possibility in ancient Rome. It was commonplace. After dark, the city belonged to cut purses and backstabbers. Literally. You clutch the tiny coin pouch you picked up at the Forum earlier. Not much in it, but enough to tempt someone who hasn't eaten in a day. A chill runs down your spine. Some say that certain streets were cursed, that if you walked down them at the wrong hour, you wouldn't come out. Not because of monsters, but because of men, or women, or both, working together with knives and nets and zero remorse. You pass what looks like a temple, but even the gods are asleep tonight, or maybe pretending not to see. You swear one of the statues just moved. You try not to look back. Another fun fact, if fun still exists right now, there were no house numbers in Rome. You found places by landmarks, by smell, by sound, none of which help you now, lost in the dark with no GPS and zero locals willing to give directions. And let's talk about sound again. There's something dripping behind you. There's something breathing to your left. And there's something following you. You don't look. You walk faster. Then faster. Then you break into a run. Your heart's hammering. You dodge a pile of trash, skid on something wet, almost crash into a wall. Behind you, footsteps, closer. You whip around, nothing. Which is worse? Are they hiding? Waiting? Playing? You dart into a doorway, press yourself flat against the wall. You hold your breath, count to 5, then 10. Then, a hand slaps the wall next to your head. You yell, loud, and the hand? It's just a drunk guy. He mumbles something about a lost brooch and stumbles off, giggling. You're shaking. That was almost funny. Almost. You need to find shelter. Fast. A storage shed, a tavern, a random staircase, and that's when you see the figure again. The fast one. The one with the metallic glint. This time, they see you too. They don't run. They smile and disappear. That's when you decide. Forget directions. Forget logic. You run toward the Tiber River, hoping water means civilization. It does. Kind of. You find a group of dock workers sleeping near crates. One of them stirs, grunts, sees you, and goes back to sleep. You curl up beside a sack of grain and try not to cry. The sky above is black. No stars. The kind of dark that doesn't just hide things. It dares them to come closer. Some say Rome at night was alive with ghosts. Some say the real ghosts were the people who walked through it and never came back. All you know is you've survived another few hours. Barely. But don't get comfortable. Because morning doesn't mean safety. Morning just means a whole new kind of danger. You wake up sore, half covered in grain dust, and more grateful than ever to see daylight until you remember where you are. Rome, and you're still alive. But something feels off. There's a new kind of weight in the air, not like the filth and danger of the night before. This one is quieter, heavier, and colder, even under the sun. It's the weight of eyes, and not the kind you can see. You pull yourself up, brush off what you hope is just grain husk, and head into the city again. You don't really have a plan, just a growing desire to not die before sunset. Reasonable, right? You wander into what seems to be a domus, a wealthy Roman house, hoping to blend in, ask for directions, or maybe just steal a sip of water. The atrium is massive, open air, lined with columns and mosaics that shimmer in the light. You're barely inside when a slave appears at your side. You didn't hear them coming. "Can I help you?" they ask. Their tone is polite, but their eyes, calculating. You lie, badly. Say you're a guest of someone important, mumble a name that sounds Latin enough. The slave nods once, gestures for you to wait, and vanishes behind a curtain. You're not alone, though. There are more slaves here, sweeping floors, adjusting drapes, bringing food. They move silently, but they notice everything. Your clothes, your dirty feet, the way you flinch when someone walks behind you. You're an outsider, and they know. Here's something they don't teach you in school. In ancient Rome, about 1 in 3 people was a slave. That's not a typo. A third of the population. They were cooks, teachers, accountants, bodyguards, even doctors. Some were treated decently. Most weren't. And while Roman masters liked to pretend their slaves were invisible, the truth is they saw everything. Every affair, every secret conversation, every betrayal. You sit on a stone bench, trying to look like you belong, and overhear a conversation drifting from behind a curtained archway. 2 men. One's a senator. The other, maybe a merchant. They're whispering about grain prices, a shipment that shouldn't be traced, and someone named Lucilla who apparently knows too much. You lean in slightly, just curious. But so is the slave sweeping the floor beside you. He's not even pretending not to listen. He doesn't have to. He knows his place, and he knows no one expects him to talk. But he will. Just not to you. And that's the real horror of this place. In modern life, you might rant to your Uber driver or gossip near your barista without a second thought. But in Rome, saying the wrong thing near a slave could cost you your life. Not because they would hurt you, but because someone else might, based on what they heard. Slaves could be bought, traded, punished, but they were also used as spies, by families, by politicians, even by other slaves. Rumors floated through Rome like smoke. And slaves? They were the wind. You're still lost in thought when someone speaks directly behind you. You seem unfamiliar. You jump. A woman stands there, dressed in a fine stola, her gaze sharp as a dagger. She's clearly the lady of the house, and she's clearly not buying your story. You stammer something about being a traveler. She narrows her eyes. My slaves tell me you were asking questions. You weren't, but that doesn't matter. She waves her hand, and within seconds, 2 male slaves flank you. They're not aggressive, just firm. She leans in closer. Careful where you step, stranger. In this city, even walls have ears, and mine are very loyal. You're escorted out, gently but with unmistakable finality. Out on the street again, your heart's racing. You didn't say anything incriminating, but you didn't have to. In ancient Rome, gossip was currency. Information was a weapon, and if you couldn't control who heard you, you were already losing. Here's a twisted little fact. Some wealthy Romans trained their slaves to eavesdrop, not just on guests, but on other slaves. There were entire households caught in webs of internal surveillance, everyone listening, no one speaking freely. Imagine trying to whisper your fears, your plans, your love letters, knowing someone might sell your words to the highest bidder. And even if a slave wanted to stay loyal to you, their loyalty could be bought or beaten out of them. Some say the fall of great Roman families didn't begin in the Senate. It began in the kitchens, or the laundry rooms, or the bathhouses, where secrets slipped as easily as soap. You wander aimlessly now, trying to keep your mouth shut, but it's hard. You bump into a man carrying scrolls. He curses you, calls you a stinking Gaul. Someone else hears that. Now you're labeled a foreigner. You mutter that you're just lost. Another slave passing by hears you. His eyes narrow. You duck into a wine shop, try to blend in. But even here, the servant pouring drinks is watching your lips more than your cup. Eventually, you learn to speak less, to smile vaguely, to nod without confirming anything. You're learning the Roman way. Survival through silence. And yet, even silence isn't safe. Some say silence is suspicious. Why wouldn't you be chatting, laughing, boasting about your day? What are you hiding? By now, you don't know who to trust. That old woman selling olives has 2 slaves and a reputation for trading gossip. That child leading a donkey might belong to a family of informants. Even the beggar missing half his teeth could be faking it for a bribe. Your mouth stays shut, but your eyes are wide open. You make it back to the edge of the forum just before evening. You haven't been arrested, or stabbed, or accused of witchcraft, but the silence is screaming. You sit down, finally, and realize how tired you are, not from running or hiding, but from watching every word, every gesture. Some say freedom of speech didn't exist in Rome. Others say it did, if you were rich enough, powerful enough, or foolish enough not to care. You're none of those things. So you keep quiet, because here, secrets are never safe, and someone is always listening. You weren't planning to wander this far, but after the whole everyone's spying on you episode, you figured a little peace and quiet wouldn't hurt. So you kept walking, away from the forum, away from the noise, and now you're somewhere quieter. Too quiet. The air is thick with incense, not the pleasant kind you'd burn to cover up a weird smell in your apartment. This is something heavier, sharp, almost metallic, like copper left too long in the rain. You duck into a narrow alley drawn by the faint sound of chanting. It's rhythmic, slow, repetitive, almost hypnotic. You think maybe you've found a temple. Could be interesting, might even be safe. But the closer you get, the more your instincts scream at you to turn around. You don't. Of course you don't. Because curiosity hasn't killed you yet. The alley opens into a small courtyard. There's a fire burning in a stone bowl. Several people in dark robes stand around it, heads bowed, arms raised. They're chanting in Latin, but not the kind you half remember from school. This is older, sharper. It cuts at the edge of your comprehension like a whisper you almost recognize. You try to back away, But someone sees you. A robed figure turns, just their head, not their body, and stares. They don't speak. They just, "No, you're not supposed to be here." Here's the thing about religion in ancient Rome. It wasn't a private, peaceful affair. It was public, political, performance-based. People prayed for good harvests, military victories, or favors from the gods, but always in groups, with rituals so strict that messing up a single word could doom the entire thing. And if you weren't Roman, or worse, if you were a foreigner who interrupted one of those rituals, let's just say, the gods weren't the only ones who might punish you. You try to act casual. Maybe they'll ignore you. Maybe you'll slip away. Nope. Another figure breaks from the circle and walks toward you. You open your mouth to explain, to lie again, but they hold up a hand, not in greeting, in warning. "This is not for you," they say. Their voice is soft, calm,